I'm Tony Ruiz of Gold Derby here with Angel Bismark Curiel, who plays Lil Papi on Pose. And Angel, I want to actually start at the end because the 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 last season really gives Poppy and Angel a beautiful kind of happy ending that we don't often get to see with these types of stories. Was that something that was important to you? I mean, was that important that these two have a happy ending?
I think so. I think it's pretty vital. Pose shares a lot of honest truth about what happens to the trans, queer, and gay community. Um, and for me, and I'm not a writer, but for me, I thought it was a beautiful touch to the stories that we've told thus far to give a Black trans woman a happy ending. I thought that was extremely important for the Black trans women that tune in to watch the show and see themselves on a weekly basis that they have a happy ending. Specifically because we live in a world that does not give them happy endings. So
The love story between Poppy and Angel have really became, particularly starting in season two, but really became one of just the emotional focuses of the show. Was what When that first started? Did you know it was going to turn into what it has turned into for fans of the show?
no way, no way. I know when I first saw the script, uh, that first introduced like a gentle hint of the love story that was about to bloom between Angel and Poppy, I was like, oh shoot, like, this is pretty dope as far as work, and as far as like I see this being a bit revolutionary, right? In my very naive mind, not really knowing how much bigger it was going to be and how much more meaningful and impactful it was going to be to Black trans women around the world, and also just men that see themselves in Poppy, which for me is like the greatest joy of playing Poppy, is making sure that cisgendered, straight men can see themselves in Poppy and say, hey, I also love a Black trans woman or a trans woman, and there's no shame in that. Let me step up to the plate. Let me make sure that she feels supported because she lives in a world that, again, does not support her. So it's pretty, it's pretty major.
It's interesting that you say that because I think on the surface Poppy would seem like, kind of this, he could easily be played as like a kind of a macho man sort of stereotype, but it feels like, that in your portrayal of him, it's you've really worked to show that more layered side of what masculinity could be.
Yeah, well, when I first picked up the script, I read it and I very much felt the same way. I was like, oh man, this is such a beautiful character. I feel like if anyone else gets their hands on Poppy, they might not show the full light and the full range of emotional availability that is this character. They might just play him as that macho, tough, street hardened kind of guy. But I never saw Poppy that way. I saw him, instantly, and we all do as an orphan. Um, and I thought there was a lot of delicateness that existed inside this human being. He wasn't all that tough. He was longing and consistently looking for a family. Otherwise, why after the house of Evangelista, you know, do you go blazing outside of the ballroom when you see them and you saw that they just lost and you say, no, 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 it's much bigger than winning and losing. There's something special here. There's love, there's family, there's communion, there's connection. I want that because I don't have it, and so that's the layers that we were just talking about, right? Poppy's a layered, he still has his patriarchal ways. Most and all men do, regardless if they're willing to admit it or not. And it shows up in very different ways for a lot of different men. So all that to say that Poppy's not just full blown sensitive and delicate. He still has very much a big chunk of machismo that exists in him because it's all about performing, right? Particularly for men, it's performative. masculinity can be so performative. I even caught myself the other day. It's ridiculous. I caught myself the other day having lunch, and I was having, some nice iced tea and enjoying the summer day, and I caught myself crossing my legs, and I was so relaxed, and I felt so myself. And then that performative aspect came into my mind, and I was like, some motherfucker is gonna see you crossing your legs right now, and he's gonna think you're soft. And instantly I caught myself trying to take up more space. I put my hands up, all this stuff. And then instantly I said, what are you doing? You're performing. You were just comfortable. You felt the most yourself you had felt. What are you doing? And so I wanted to make sure that I brought a lot of that to Papi, because that exists. Most men are out here performing masculinity, and that's why it becomes toxic. And so I wanted to make sure that, yes, Papi was this vulnerable, sensitive human being, but he had his own flaws, performing masculinity and trying to exist in this very much patriarchal world that says there's only one way to be a man, otherwise you're not. So yeah, very layered.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I talked to MJ last week, and she was talking about things that characteristics of Blanca that she wishes that she had. Are there characteristics of Papi that are not in you that you have tried to kind of like take from the character?
Yeah, Papi shows up. I'll be brutally honest with myself. Particularly when people hurt me, I'm very much out of sight, out of mind. And I'm learning something that's not healthy. Just how you're willing to show up for people when things are all good and all gravy. I think it's equally valid and important to show up when things are not all good and all gravy. Because that's really where the growth exists. That's really where you start to learn what it really means to be a human being. Because the point is, we're all human, and everyone out here is hurting or trying to hurt. And that is really what we all exist inside of. And I think as I realize that, and as I might mature more and more into myself, I say, no, you know what? I'm going to accept the fact that people are going to cause hurt because they're hurting. And I have the ability, right, which is vital. And I understood. I was given a gift by my cousin who was educating me on this. I have the opportunity to receive that pain, and I can either continue the cycle and inflict more pain, or I can grab that pain and cut it. It stops right here. And so that's something that I see Papi does consistently. It doesn't matter if Angel's, blazing out the second he hears he has a son. The second Angel hears Papi has a son, he doesn't look to inflict more pain in light of that, because he understands very much what it is that Angel is going through, what she's going through, and why she feels like she can't show up, not just for her future husband, but for this kid. There's trauma. We're all walking around with trauma, and trauma shows up in many different ways. And one of them is, right, the flight or flight, or the freeze response, right? Mm-hmm. She flew. she went running. And Papi could have done the same, or Papi could have fought, but Papi, all he did was grab that pain, take it. And the second she came back, he said, baby, there's more than enough room for the both of us. You know what I'm saying? For everybody here. And so he cut that cycle of trauma, that cycle of pain, which is something that I see in Papi, but don't necessarily see in myself. And so I'm learning to adapt into that, into very much cutting it, pain stops here.
Well, let's talk about some of those scenes, because you had to go to what I thought were really new kind of dramatic places for Papi this season. Not just, dealing with, Angel's, relapsing and the fight over, Papi finding out he has a son. Were some of those really dramatic scenes, were those difficult for you? Were you finding that, was this new territory you were delving into for yourself?
Extremely difficult. I think particularly right around the time that we went back, I think right around episode 3, I really started to push myself as an actor to reach different levels of understanding of what I saw acting to be. Um, Before I really just thought is, you know, read the script, sort of take what you can from it, and then deliver the lines and be as present as you can. But then around episode 3, I ran into a Meisner technique. And I had no idea what it was, but I started reading into it and I was like, oh my God, this is like what I've been missing. But I realized that it took work. It took work because it's all about existing in under imaginary circumstances, but allowing your emotional life to be as real as possible. And so you had to go and you had to search and you had to take from yourself and pour and dump even more, which I thought is what I was doing the previous 2 seasons. But as I really started to do the work, I was like, oh my God, I am emotionally exhausted because I want people to feel how real this hurt, you know, or how real this joy is, or how real this celebration is. And I had to take myself to places to make sure that it feels real to me. Because if it feels real to me, it's going to feel real to anyone and everyone that is witnessing it. And for me as an actor, that is the most important thing. That is my only job. That's why I'm hired. I'm hired to make something feel real. And for me, I realized that the only way that I can do that is by making sure that it feels real to me, right? And being responsive to the stimulus that's outside of me. Because if I'm responding to something that's outside of me instead of going inward, where I might lose myself in such a space and forget about all the beautiful elements that are out here that'll influence human behavior, um, is everything that I started to do right this season. And so as I started to implement this new technique into my acting, I realized that, wow, these emotional scenes are so much harder than I thought they were. So yes, very, very difficult.
Yeah, and of course, I think for a lot of people, the kind of emotional climax is the wedding. And you just completely, like, when you read in the script,
Mm.
you know, that you were going to be singing, um, thoughts go.
Terrified. I said, no way, Jose, don't do it to me today. No, I was scared. I was like, you know, I had never done singing outside of my shower, man, or maybe in a car driving, you know, I have the speaker booming. You can't hear me with the speaker booming. And so when I saw that I was gonna have to do that and people were actually gonna have to listen to my voice and hear it, it was terrifying. You know, instantly I had the bad wolf come in and say, you can't do this. People are gonna make fun of you. You're gonna get trolled. You're gonna sound like a fucking idiot. You know, all these things, you know, that bad wolf that's just constantly barking at us. Um, but I recognized the challenge that it was. And I think I'm always very welcoming for challenges because I understand the growth that comes out of being extremely uncomfortable. And so I said, bet, let's be uncomfortable. And I started taking my classes. You know, a couple more. I didn't feel like it was enough, but I took as many as I was allowed before the episode was shot. And I did that. Then I went in the booth. I recorded the song, which was another terrifying experience. I was like, I have to like sing in here in front of people. Like y'all watching me already. And I did that, but you know, on the day, it was the most nervous I think I had ever been. We had all of our beautiful background actors that were there. We had all our crew, and I had all my cast members, whom were just extremely encouraging from the get-go. I think when we all read the episode 6, beautifully written and directed by Janet Mock. Even in the table read, I said, you know what? I see that I'm about to sing. Let me just do it. And so I found the song super quick and I played it. in our Zoom and I started singing it and I was like just bawling and I was like, this is really scary. I'm just gonna do it. And they were all just very, very encouraging. And then on the day, you know, MJ was really a safe space for me. And she looked at me and she said, whenever you get nervous, just look over here, look over here. And that was all I needed. On top of Janet making sure that the set was run so smooth and so efficiently that I felt extremely protected and extremely safe on set. So thank you to Janet for that. And then I got up there, I did it, and I felt naked. But it was the most liberating experience I had ever encountered, because it forced me, truly forced me to get out of my head. I'm such a heady person. I live in here, right? That's how I protect myself from my own trauma, right? I go straight to my head. As a kid, trauma, everything, abuse, everything is happening around me. Go up here, you know. And so that moment, instead of going up here, I had to go over here. And when I went over here, I went in my body. And when I went in my body, I was the most present I had ever been in my entire life. Mm. It was the most exciting thing I had ever experienced in my entire life, to be that present, to be that awake, you know, particularly with India Moore right in front of me, giving me everything, giving me every moment, every beat, being so present with me. It was so free, and I was flying. I was on top of the world, man. And it was just magical. That wedding was magical.
Has MJ, as the mother of this series and as the mother of the House of Evangelista, did MJ in a way become like kind of like a surrogate parent figure to you on set?
Yeah, definitely. You know, from the jump, MJ and I had a very strong bond, a strong connection. You know, I remember before I was upgraded to a series regular, when I was reoccurring, really just supposed to show up for like 3 episodes. I remember like close to the 3rd episode of season 1, I ended up in her trailer just sobbing, you know, because I didn't want to go. I didn't want to let go. I was so happy. I felt so welcomed and so loved by everyone. And she was just there, you know, consoling me, telling me, hey, no worries, you're putting in the work and people see it and watch. And I kid you not, I think like the next day, I was in a van and I got a call from my reps and they were like, where are you at? You know, I'm like, what do you mean, where am I at? I'm working. Do you not know my schedule? And they told me that, you know, Ryan said, hey, like we like the kid. Let's upgrade him to a series regular. Let's keep him. And MJ was in that very van, and you know, instantly she was the first one that I wanted to go and share this exciting news. I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna be with y'all. You know, and our relationship just developed, you know, continuously from that point on. In that same pattern, very much like I felt like MJ was this individual that I could look up to. She's very much a leading woman. You know, she's my leading lady. I look up to her, which is why one of the best pieces of direction that I got on set, particularly from Stephen Canals and from Janet Mock consistently throughout the series, was Papi is the male Blanca. And feeling the love and connection that I had from MJ, combined with the work that she was doing as Blanca, I said, got it. I completely understand what that note is. Let me keep it running. And I believe that was a huge trait, or like a huge direction that developed and showcased Papi into the Papi that we all know and saw.
Well, it's just been such an important series, and you've been such a big part of it. So I thank you for that. Everybody go to goldderby.com, make your predictions for the Emmys, and stay tuned for more interviews with contenders throughout the season. Angel Bismark Curiel, a great pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tony. I appreciate you.